I've pondered how to kind of go about this of talking about this. So I pretty much just wanted to just bring this up in a general term. One of the big things that has impacted me so much is my studying and practicing the wisdom in the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. So I've spoken about this a couple different times. I brought it up in different conversations on the podcast before, but never as like a specific topic as much. I was much more comfortable doing it in a writing uh, term for a while. I've done my weekend Tao where I've written about it once a week in my email newsletter on it for almost a year now. But speaking of it was always a little bit more nerve-wracking. With writing, you have a little bit more time to sit back and, get your words right on it. Where speaking, it needs to be clear in your mind. And why the hesitancy, I guess, is probably in some ways maybe imposter syndrome or lack of authority. It comes out, there's so many great people that I've listened to and I've studied who are so articulate in their mastery of the Tao, that I was like, who am I to speak about this? But in reality, the main mission I've always had about doing solo podcasts is I just want to speak truthfully about the things that have benefited me the most, the things that I've learned, and also the things that I've struggled with, because all those things are very similar to probably you and the things that you're going through in your life. And the Tao has been the one thing that has aligned with me most over the past year, not just in studying it and journaling about it, but actually bringing it into my strength training practices and actual physical movement. And I want to speak about that a little bit today. Okay. So personally, I've always had an interest myself in theology and religion and spirituality for quite some time. It was never something that I was brought up with. I was raised by two parents who were agnostic. They didn't have great experiences in organized religions, so they chose not to raise me and my sister that way, which was absolutely fine. We had a great childhood and we had great morals and values that we were brought up with. But this question always seemed like, personally for me, was something I wanted to dive into more. And I've studied and read a lot of different texts and philosophies before, but the Tao is the one that was closest and most aligned with me, and for probably numerous ways. I mean, one, it's not dogmatic. It's very open in interpretation. Lao Tzu, who wrote this 2,500 years ago, used nature as a huge example of it. By studying and being in nature, he came about these 81 verses. And it was actually not 81 verses at the time. It was broken up at some point in history. But there's an old cliche of it. It takes an afternoon to read. It's very, very short, but it takes a lifetime to understand. So it's something that you can take a verse and really study it and ponder it and bring it into your practice and see how it resonates with you. And that's where I've seen the biggest impact. And I recently just finished reading Dr. Wayne Dyer's book. It's called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, which the first time I saw it, I was like, this is such a corny title. It's so self-helpy that I almost steered away from it. But it's the wisdom inside that book is incredible. The whole book is him taking a year of studying the Tao and researching it and taking each verse and then breaking it down into his own personal thoughts and other translations or other scholars that he found, and bringing their wisdom into what that verse means. And that at the end of each of the chapters is a specific practice that you can work with. And I just finished this book, and the way that he curated this info and articulated it spoke a lot to me. And that's why I wanted to really dive in and speak about it, because one, every time that I've studied the Tao over the past year, my day has been better. Training has been more focused. I've gotten stronger. I've gotten less tweaks and injuries. My communication, my conversations have been stronger. I've been more in flow throughout the day. Everybody knows that feeling of flow. You've probably felt it yourself. And when you find it and you're in it, it is such an amazing feeling. And I found that more and more, and not just specific practices, but just throughout my whole day. And I know one of the major reasons is because of my studying and my writing about and my looking into the works of the Tao. So that's what I'm going to be doing just consistently going forward with this podcast. I don't have a specific thing as far as I'm going to be doing a verse by verse each week or anything like that. I'm not putting any specific constraints on myself of what I have to do.